Welcome to the Top 200 podcast with your host, Herschel Foran.
What's up, everybody? Herschel Foran from High School Top 200, and welcome to the Monday morning meeting. Let's get all that stuff out of the way because it's really good to be back, but I need everybody to like and subscribe, all that kind of stuff, put down comments, ask questions, all those kind of things, because I like having questions asked. I like being able to, I guess, let a lot more out than I like to sometimes. Sometimes I'm a bit reserved in the way that I get my opinions out, and because this is like this is to deal with high school kids, I'm not all the way critical like I would be of my friends. Like I'm really honest with everybody, but I'm really honest if you ask me. Like if you ask me privately, I'll be honest to you, and be pretty direct with my honesty. And so I like when people ask me questions. It just gives me an opportunity to really, I guess, talk about stuff that I haven't really thought of, or I get to lay a bit more context down of the way that I think and the way that I feel, things like that. So any questions that you may have, remember, like, subscribe, comment, sign up for High School Top 200. And yes, I'm going to get that wording changed because I'm not the one that put it there. Web designers thought that, hey, this will be pretty funny and tricky in the way that I do it. And I said, no, don't do it. And they did it. And I was right, because that would be annoying to me too. The hstop200.com subscription is $5. There's no such thing as get it for free. I actually found over 15,000 people that were on my website for free and that just weren't paying anything for over like the last 3 years or so. And those are all the people that signed up even before I put a subscription on it. So that's the reason why. But I've gotten them to change it. And so for some of you people that are jumping on now and saying that you can't sign in, you haven't paid any money, well, that's kind of the reason why, is because I've gotten them to change it. I didn't even know that there was that many of them that and until we kind of found out, I was thinking, well, the money and the thing does not make sense. And so, yeah. Now, whether I get all those people coming back, that's always like another thing, but hopefully they would want to come back. Hopefully we pick up some new people to the channel and to the website, and all the rankings are going to come down later on tonight. So go and have a look at all the rankings before I take them all off. And then I will start back with all the new rankings the week before the first game of the Miles Toyota Cup competition, because they're the first ones that get their competition started off. Them and also the Super 8 do it within the same week, because Palmy and Gisborne always get their game off first. They get their game up out of the way first because they're the longest distance to travel. And having that during the beginning of in the middle of the season is just too hard for those two teams to travel that far. I kind of wish that the Miles Toyota Cup would do the same with the Nelson teams, but I'm guessing because there's 3 of them up there. Yeah, because you got Nelson, Marlborough, and Waimea as well. I don't know. Would that be easier if they just went to Wellington? I mean, like, to me, if that was the case, why wouldn't they just join the Wellington competition? If that was closer and easier to get to. I mean, I don't know. I've traveled down on the boat a few times. No, more than a few times, but I don't know really how much it cost, and had time and all that kind of stuff added into it. But so I'm going to start the rankings for everything before the first week. They're all going to be posted up, from year 11s, 12s, and the top 200, and then the top 100 schools as well. So remember, for those that are new, the year 11s have a top 60 year 11 ranking. The year 12 have a top 100 year 12 rankings. And then if you're good enough as a year 12 to make it on the top 200 rankings, you'll also be on there too. And that's for everybody. No year 11 has really made it, I guess, for years and years, I guess from when I first started it. There were a few year 11s then, but that's when my knowledge of rugby was kind of growing. I didn't really understand closely about how different a year 11 to a year 13 could be. And so, yeah, obviously I made some mistakes, because that's usually what happens anyway. And so when I finally brushed up on what everything is, then yeah, they don't usually make it. You're going to have to be pretty good as a year 11 to make it. And then I got a top 100 rankings for schools that will also be up. And so those things will be changed weekly. The players get changed every 2 weeks, and then the year 11s get changed 1 week, and then the year 12s and the year 13s get changed the other week. And they alternate so that there's new stuff to look at. And then the teams get changed weekly, so that it is all based on your wins and losses and those that you play against. And so all those things are real important. When it comes down to it, in terms of rankings, and that's one of the questions as well that was about rankings that somebody asked, and so I'll be answering that too later on in the thing. But then that's kind of how it works out. So if you're new to this page and you're trying to figure out, what's going on or how it works, or all these kind of changes and stuff, that's how all those rankings and stuff work. And so that's why it's really important to get to add me to all your guys' huddle and your VO or whatever it's called, or just send me your games, add me to your things so I can watch games and watch players, and sending me your rosters and making sure that I know who year 11s are and who the year 12s are, and so that I can add the players to the list of, there's always teams that don't want to do that. I don't know why. I feel like sometimes coaches probably think that it can be a bit detrimental to their, I guess, to their psyche or to their mental. But I feel like it's the other way around. Because so many kids have told me too, some kids would hit me up and they go, how come I'm not on your, top 60 year 11s or year 12s? And I say, well, sometimes I say, oh, sorry, but I didn't even know you were year 11 or year 12. There'd be a lot of players that I thought were just, that were year 11, and I thought they were year 12, year 13. And I just thought, yeah, they're good, but, they're not good enough to, be ranked in the top 200. Only to find out that they're year 11. I was like, yeah, they shouldn't be ranked in the top 200, but they should be ranked highly in the year 11. And that's only just because I don't know. That's only just because someone hasn't told me, or someone from the school doesn't contact me or go, hey, just make sure you correct this. Our boys deserve to be on these lists. I was like, yeah, cool, okay, that's fine. Let me have a look at them and let me mention them, or let me talk about them as year 11s. Let me talk about them as year 12s. Because the other thing as well is that, a lot of selectors come onto my page and they read my stuff, and then they also get an idea of oh, this kid is, this and that and all that kind of stuff too. And it just gets them mentally right as well, that of where a player should be, if selection is right for them, things like that, or do they just look good in this system and things like that, but they're just a young player that looks good in that competition, but if they were going to be added against other big boys from other big schools, they would really crumble, because that's kind of how it is sometimes. But yeah, there's been a lot of year 11s and year 12s that I thought were just year 13s and not good enough for the top 200, and then when they let me know and I go, oh no, I didn't know, and then there's somewhere I go, oh, I'm not too sure. I just think, these are the things why I don't think you should make it. And then they pretty much just tell me, they go, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to make your rankings. And a lot of them have proven me wrong. And that was basically just because they thought they deserved to be on there. They played like they wanted to be on there, and I actually think that there's I feel like there's a lot that goes into challenging a player, putting not putting pressure. I don't want to say pressure, but giving them a challenge is kind of what it is. Seeing how far they can push themselves and seeing how much they can lift up from what they thought was the best and see what their talent and pain threshold that they thought that they had and that I thought they had, and then they can actually prove themselves right and prove me wrong. I always find that real inspiring to watch, and just to see some of these guys' games lift. Like there's a few year 12s as well that they go, hey, I deserve to be on that top 200 list. And like, you know, they're ranked in the year 12s, but they go, oh, I'm better than a lot of those year 13s. And then I'll just have to say, oh, I don't think so because of this, and this. And then they got a run of 3 games where they were just, it was like they almost took it as a personal thing and a challenge, and 90% of the time they come up right and they just go, this is what I'm about, this is what I can do. And then I kind of see it in their play too. I'm like, oh yeah, actually he was right. And he has been having these things. And so like for me, I welcome all that kind of stuff and welcome that challenge from players and from students to go, hey, look out for me, I'm year 11, this kind of this, you know, I play in the first 15, I come off the bench and like even coming off the bench, like some of these guys that they go, oh yeah, I'll come off the bench, it's like, yeah, that's not an embarrassing thing. Especially when you got like a guy that's in front of you that's like one of the best in your region. It's just like, that's not an embarrassment. Like coming off the bench as a year 11 or year 12 behind a player that's like that is just like, oh, that's understandable. That's got nothing to do with why you're not on there. That's got more to do with like, what can you do when you get on the field kind of thing. I always look at it as something that I admire when a guy like cherishes the time that he gets when he's on the field and makes every possible moment worth it once they get on the field, even if it is for just 15 minutes, because the player that's in front of them is like, you know, one of the top players. You can't help that kind of stuff. But going from year 12 to year 13, and then I see it, I'm like, oh, actually, yeah, they do actually have 2 guys in there in the same position, which you can't really do that much about. You know, or like they've been pushed out to another position, and it happens a lot with like halfbacks. They always get pushed to the wing because they're so talented, but you can't really keep them off the field. You know, just their drive, or sometimes they get pushed to fullback when you're just like, oh no, he's, you know, you get shuffled around and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and it's just like, oh no, because he's one of the top in the country, and you're like, yeah, that's fine. It's just like, but you know, you put these guys in these positions and they're not as good, and so like I look at them, I'd be like, well, for a fullback, you're not great at all, or you're just like a good average player, above average player, but then you put them in the right position and they flip and change the game. I mean, I just saw that just this Saturday as well, where, you know, a kid moved from, you know, I guess from the wing last year into halfback where he's supposed to be, and he flipping changed the game, and just the way that he plays changed the game, made it so much better for his team, you know, and just in that situation, you know. And so it was just one of those things that I guess that I guess that they have to do as coaches, just to get everybody on the field. But you know, I always take into consideration guys that they have on their team. I respect the selection of the coaches, but then I also do take into account what you do when you get on the field. I don't care so much sometimes if you don't start. You know, that's not a big consideration. It would be a big consideration if you're like, on the bench and the guy that was in front of you is, is just a good player, just average player, I'll start asking questions. I'll be like, well, I don't know, is that the coach's son? Or is that the coach's best mate's son? Or something like that? It's like, because if you can't beat him out, then you still got to ask questions about yourself. Something like that. It's like, because if you can't beat him out, then you still got to ask questions about yourself. One of those kind of situations. But some of these games are supposed to go to De La Salle because they played against Francis Douglas and they had their 13-all draw on Friday. I know that De La Salle is dealing with a new team that they have going on. And it's always different when you got a new team going in or when a lot of guys leave. Trying to get to fast track players, I guess, is like a real hard one too. Trying to fast track players into their positions, into the situations that you want them to be in, just in game time running, and just making sure that they're ready enough to make the right decision at the right time at speed, all those kind of things. And so De La Salle is they're kind of in that situation. But let me look. The new Plymouth and Fielding game, where Fielding came out on top. I don't know what happened in the Auckland Grammar, Rotorua, and St. Peter's, Cambridge and Rosmini as well. I know Palmy won against Wellington. Hastings and St. Kentigans, they played as well in Taupo. On Sunday. And it's a different thing, I think, when you're coming in when it's preseason, and you're trying to figure out from a coach's point of view, you're trying to figure out what's the best look for your team. You're also trying to figure out who are we turning to this year? Who are the 4 or 5 main guys this year that we can turn to when we need to make a play? I think for the most part, that's what most coaches are looking for in preseason. They're looking for those kind of guys, as well as looking for the win. But I just don't feel like a win in preseason matters a whole lot. I think it feels good, but I don't know if it actually answers questions. Because coaches a lot of the times are looking for moments in the game where you put a combination together that in hopes that they get it right within that moment. And I think because every competition is different and different in the way that they played, that you just kind of hope that these 2 work it out or these 3 work it out in these moments or in this 2-minute span or 3-minute span in this part of the field, that they just go in there and then they are trustworthy enough at that time that these 3 or 2 guys can put it together. And I think coaches look for these moments, and then you start sort of ticking off the boxes or crossing it off or coming up with different kind of plays and different kind of options for these guys at this time, so that when you have halftime and then you come to the end of the game and then you have your game sessions and you can go, hey, used to, at this moment, when you pause this game and go, at this moment, you show them, you go, this is what we're looking for. And I feel like we're close by what you guys did here. Let's start looking at these options, this, and this, and this. And so I kind of understand where teams come from, and especially players, and parents are different because parents just want, like, I just want my son to win. It's just like, yeah, it's preseason. It's fine. It's all right. They're just getting it together, you know? They're just getting it together. I mean, Westlake was like that. Like Westlake losing to Hastings, and then they won against St. Peter's on Saturday. But they're another one that just like, it's fine. Like you got a good team, you got good young players. You're gonna get there. It's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be all right. You know, like things like that. You know, I think that giving them that opportunity, I think is to make a play, giving them those opportunities to test out how strong they can be, breaking down the normals, I guess, as well. I think that there's going to be those times and moments where you know you do want to win, but at the same time I was just like, I just want to see what we've been working on and see if it actually works out. And that doesn't necessarily mean you won the game. Yes, it's all great, because sometimes you win the game and you're just like, flipping hell, we got a lot of work. And sometimes wins in the preseason don't actually come off as wins sometimes, because you're like, we won because we're talented. We didn't win because we set it up right, or because we, you know, like everyone just played off instinct. But but instinct finishes after a while, during plays and stuff like that. And then you stuff up once you have structure and play instinct off structure and off a base and off a foundation of what you're trying to do. Game works out a whole lot better. Sometimes games are just won because guys are just more talented, especially here in first 15 level. You can get to those games where you're just like, oh no, we're just talented, but we're not a better team than them. We just got better individuals in there that we just worked it out on the field, but we can't do that all the time. But they're a better team as a whole. You know, it's like, we just got away with this one. You know, it's like things like that, you know, and sometimes preseasons are one of those times where I feel like coaches should be given space. They should be given time, especially once the season starts. Give them that free 5 to 6 weeks of, like, we're still trying to figure this out. 10 weeks into a season, including like preseason and stuff, still isn't really that long of a time, you know. And remember, we're still dealing with kids that is going to be the first and maybe last time at this level, and you're asking them to figure it out, you know, in 10 weeks. You're asking them to get acclimated with the pace in 10 weeks. You're asking them to go up against teams that are way better than what they used to playing, what they played just 6 months ago when they were just playing, you know, under 15s or under 16s, or, you know, second 15. Sometimes the jump from second 15 to first 15 is just way too big. So sometimes it's hard to ask boys and ask players to be in the moment, their best, because it doesn't really work like that. I always think it's funny, like, I think I was looking on, like, it's online anyway, and there's this clip of this dude who's in the cage, and I think the guy's got him in like a Kimura or something like that. He's getting ready to sort of choke him out, and then the coach is yelling at him, you know, turn, and then the guy's like, hey, I'm trying to, and it's just like parents on the sideline telling boys to tackle, and the boys are like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. It's not like that fella's huge. He's big. He's bigger than the guys that I used to tackle last year. So just give me time, guys. It's like, it's not always that easy, you know?
Are you always going to go for opposition? Offside! Offside!
It's like things like that. It's just like we got to give some of these guys a chance, and even once the season starts, some teams just start off slow too. Some teams start off slow and just get better over time. Can't really. I know it's unfair to compare Hamilton boys in this, but Hamilton boys are slow starters. If I was going to beat Hamilton boys, I'd beat them in the beginning of the season. Because they don't really have a lot of preseason games. Like they've got one against Westlake on Tuesday that I'm going to go up to, and if I was Westlake, I would try and beat them on Tuesday and put everything into it, because those guys are still trying to figure it out. They still haven't got their full squad together. Some of those young boys are still flipping buzzing out that they're in the first 15 and that they get to train and do all these things. And when you got experienced first 15 players playing against non-experienced first 15 players, you can rattle them. It doesn't matter what school or what level they play at. You can rattle them knowing that they're new players to the first 15. And for me, it's just like, if that was the case, then yeah, if Hamilton Boys is one of those teams I'd go after. I think Hastings is another one of those teams that you can pick up wins early on them. I think Wellington College is another one that starts off a lot slower. St. Bede, Shirley are kind of like that team. They get better as the season goes on. St. Peter's is one of those too. From Auckland, they're one of those teams that gets better as the. I would rather play them first off than play them towards the end of the season, because that's their time to shine. It's the end of the season, and they're just really unbeatable when you get to that end. But then you have some teams with just real up and down teams. Kelston, Rotoro Boys, those teams are up and down within the season, and just catching them on those moments. Catching them when they're having a bad day is not like a beginning end kind of thing. It's just like you just got to kind of catch them on that Saturday. Sometimes they'll go up. Rotorua is terrible for this too. Like sometimes they'll be better than the team, but then they just struggle throughout a game. And if you're a Rokura fan, I can understand how you can be frustrated with the way that they play sometimes. Because there's times where they play against teams that you just know that they're better than, and then they're just struggling, and you're just like, damn, what the hell's going on with these guys today? And like I kind of learned that over the years watching them too. Napier boys can be like that too. Whanganui Collegiate are kind of like that as well, whereas on paper they can be really good, and then they can get a bit starstruck by teams that they're playing against that they should be on the same level as, but then they can get freaked out by who they're playing just by the name itself. And like just things like that, you're just like, okay, then well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm trying to get down to that Whanganui Palmy game, which is their 100th game against each other, I think it is. That's on the 22nd. I want to try and get down to that game because that's going to be a pretty big game too. But yeah, it's just one of those kind of games where you're just like, I feel like Whanganui Collegiate is closer to a lot of Super 18s, but I think that they're just one of those teams that get sort of a bit spooked because they go, oh, those are Super 18s. Whereas if you're like St. John's or Fielding or St. Paul's Collegiate, sometimes Wesley, they're just like, I don't care who you guys are. It's like you kind of have to adapt to that attitude of things. So but I mean, just watching coaches and watching these preseasons, seeing some of the stuff online that have been sent, seeing them figure it out is pretty cool too. Coaching style, selections, things like that. And, I always come up with my selections, like when I know that players are coming back. And I generally, how I do it is that I always put together my team of who I think that they will pick. And then when I start seeing their guys' rosters from week to week, and I start looking at them and I think, oh, okay, and then I start seeing patterns in the way that they've selected their teams and kind of like what they're trying to do. When I see their roster, watch their game, I go, oh, okay, this is how they're trying to use them. And that's kind of what gives me the indication of how teams play and coaches coach and how they make substitutions and things like that. And I always try and take notice of the guys that they bring off the bench too, who are really good impact players in terms of like the moment on the field and at the time, the situation that's being played. Sometimes you just want to bring in some of these guys off the bench because you're like, especially the older ones of year 13s. If you're year 13 and you're on the bench, do not take that position lightly. Do not take your time on the field coming off the bench lightly, because they're trusting that you can come off the bench as an older player, stand your ground and hold on to that win that you guys have got. And that's usually how they look at it, because sometimes you can easily, especially for bigger schools that have a lot of players, like all the boys' schools, sometimes they look at them and they could easily go, oh, we'll just fill our bench with year 12s and year 11s. But if you got some year 13 sitting on the bench, you're like, oh no, that guy's picked for a reason. He's picked for those harder games. He's picked for those moments where you're like, oh no, we still need an older fellow in here. It's the older fellow that comes off fresh off the bench. It's got nothing to do with like I think that guy that's on the bench can easily start too, but it's just like, wow, how well do we want this guy, or how well do we want this guy to perform when he comes on the field? If you put him on just at any time, sometimes it just the guy doesn't react the same. But when you're running onto a field on a moment when it's like 17-13 and you're still pressed within your 22 and you bring two guys who are year 13s off the bench, most of the times they hold that out and they just give this extra confidence and boost to the other guys who are all their mates who are year 13s, and then it just gives that extra confidence. Sometimes you bring on a year 11, you're just like, holy F, now I have to watch this guy too, as well as trying to make sure that we don't get scored on and lose in front of our friends and family on the sideline. And so sometimes there's that interaction is there too, that coaches put in those situations where they bring these year 13s off the bench, and when you see a year 13 and your mate's coming on, you're just like, he's there, you're fine. Or then you're like, turn around, you're looking like, frick man, why did you turn them on now? And those are kind of the reactions that you just don't really want. If you're a year 13 and you're on the bench, I just wouldn't take that lightly at all. I have a feeling that there's a reason why you're there, and you're coming on in those specific times in the moment. If you can hold out on those positions, especially when there's like one of those forward plays where you're just like trying to keep that team off your line, and you bring in some year 13s, you're just like, man, just bang those bodies, bro, just hard out, clean those fellas out. Just put all that mongrel into it, just drive them out, just leg drive them over, clean out rucks, all that kind of stuff, throw your body into tackles. And that's probably why they want you there. And I always look at those guys that come off the bench, especially when I'm at games, like when I go and watch games and I see what the score is. I was like, flip, there's like 4 minutes left in, 2022. And you're just like looking, you're just like, okay, this fella's coming on. And then like, I always look at the guy, I was thinking, okay, let's see what this guy does. Most of the time, I'm kind of just watching that guy, because he's the one that's supposed to be the loud vocal guy, the energetic, lead the team up. And if you come off the bench as a year 13, if you just come off the bench, and those precious moments of, we need someone fresh on the field, we need someone that's gonna make a play. If you come off the bench and you make a play straight away, you are going to change the game. And I kind of want you to like think about that. If you know that you're going to be a bench player, if you know that that's where you're going to be, come towards this year, like coming into this year, or if you find yourself on the bench, when you get on the field and you know that you're in a situation of a win or loss situation, make a play straight away, because that's going to boost up everybody else. Don't come in and try and work yourself into this game with 9 minutes left. Lead the line up fast, give a lot of energy, give a lot of support, and then try and make a play. Make a difference just in those moments. Be that kind of guy where you're just a moment guy. It's just like, I'm gonna make a play in this moment, and I don't care how much minutes I got. We're gonna remember the fact that I came on here with 64 minutes on the clock, and then I made a play that we just took us back all the way down the other side of the field. Or I'm gonna make a big hit that we can get someone to jackal the ball, things like that, steal a lineup, massive scrum, things like that. Just make a play. Don't worry about where you've just, it's just like, there's only like 7 minutes and now they want to chuck me on. It's like, if that's the case, you sit on the bench. Because I would be annoyed more if it was 7 minutes left and you didn't give me a game. I would be a lot more annoyed if you're just like, you don't trust me in this moment. Like when you listen to NBA players, a lot of NBA players don't care if they're not starters in the game. They don't care if they're not in the starting five. They care if they're not on the court in a close game, and they have to be on they're on the bench. They care more if they're on the bench and they're not on the court at the end of the game. Because what that tells you is that, we don't need you. You're not needed for this. We don't have a lot of faith and trust that you can finish the moment and to seize the opportunity. For a lot of these guys in those positions, like if you're really, really wasted, this is a different story. But if you're not in there and then you're just like, should I be in there like this? If you're not on the field, sometimes that may be more about who you are as a player rather than what the coaches are wanting, because I think the coaches want guys that know how to finish games, that know what their responsibilities are, that know what you're going to be like during the toughest time of the game.
You're jolly!
That's why, like, if you're going into, like when you guys are training and they want you to move from one drill to the next, a lot of the times I'm watching all the guys that just willy-nilly themselves to the next drill, and the guys that are making jokes, they're the ones that they don't really, rely on that much, and they don't really call on. Like, it doesn't even really matter how talented they are. They'll still pull that talented player off the field towards some of the end of the games, because they're like, I don't know, he's kind of not really switched on these kind of moments. He's still kind of like, it's like, this is game, it'll finish. I'm ready to, hang out with my mates at the end of this, or my missus is waiting for me at the end of the game, or I want to take photos of my jerseys backwards, all that kind of stuff. And so, like, to be clued and locked in, even in training, is one of those things that you want to show your coach that I'm that guy, I'm that dude that you want there. If you go to if you have the chance, and you go to, if you go to like Chiefs, Blues trainings, things like that, if you can just go and sit and observe, and all those professional teams and observe, a lot of those guys don't have off conversations to the side. A lot of these guys don't play around and kicking the ball to each other or doing passing drills to each other, during a training. Like you would see like your mates who are just like, just still trying to play paper, scissors, rock on the side. It's like, bro, let's flip and get into this drill, man. And a lot of those guys that make these NPC teams and these Super Rugby teams, they're the ones that don't mess around. Those are the ones that are just like, it's training, everyone shut the hell up, and let's just get on with this training and just get it done. Because winning matters, doing your best matters, putting out your best matters. Not like, let's just crack funny jokes. It's like, let's play with, let's train with this intensity, and let's take the same intensity into the game. Adi Severe reminds me of that kind of guy. Dalton Papali reminds me of those kind of guys. Yeah, they're all funny and jokey at the, before and after games and after trainings and stuff, but not during trainings. I don't feel like those are the kind of guys that like to make jokes and stuff like that all the time. It's like they're just ready to do the work. Like guys like Joe Moody, and there's like, I don't think those guys are the ones that are trying to be funny guys on the side. I know they don't strike me that way. I don't really go and watch them train or anything like that, but they're the ones that just feel like every moment's a precious moment, and one that you can learn from and change the game with. And I've just been observing and sort of reading comments, talking to people, and it didn't strike a nerve or anything like that. I think it's just a bit unappreciative of, or maybe just unaware as well. I can't really say you're unappreciative, but maybe just unaware of how a coach works within the preseason. I mean, that's why they want you to come to training preseason fit. They don't want to get you fit through training, through the preseason. They want you to come fit already, so they can go, okay, we don't need to worry about this. I feel like there's those opportunities where you're just like, they had a chance to come fit, but they didn't. They had a whole 2 months, 3 months over Christmas, New Year's to drop maybe 10 kgs, turn some of that fat into muscle, do a bit better on your, on your Bronco, and they just didn't. And I think I know a lot of coaches hope that they be like that, but a lot of them just come back and they're like, we just gotta work with what we've got right now. But yeah, it's been interesting because I've watched a few games now. I've hoped to get to a couple, some other ones, but I just haven't been able to get there. I'm looking at, the Westlake Hamilton Boys, I think, is on Tuesday. St. Paul's and Palmy on Saturday, which I'm going to go to as well. I was thinking about the Fielding Silverstream on Wednesday.
Holy crap.
But I need to save some money because I really want to get to the St. Bede's games that they're having in Wellington when they play against Town in Silverstream. And so that's like my aim, to try and get there so I can pick up 2 St. Bede's games and also some Town in Silverstream to see them for the first time as well. And because I'm doing those games and then I want to try and get to that Palmy game as well, cash money is the problem, but I'm going to try my best. Because those games in Hastings as well are the other ones that I want to get to. It's the Hurricanes Festival. I think they're all in Hastings. I think so. I think they're in Hastings. Well, I know some games are in Hastings. Anyway, let me know anyway. I was asked about working out and what is too young to work out in the gym and to push weights. And because we all know now with like modern science and stuff like that, we know now that lifting weights does not stunt your growth. That's just not true. But being in rugby, playing rugby, you still want to stay loose and agile. And I think when you're training in the gym and you get too big, too fast, you lose that agility and flexibility in your body and in your movements. And because like one thing you do, and I guess because you, as kids, man, like you just look how much I can push on this bench, or look at my arms, and they don't really realize that you're building your body, but you're only building one part of your body and the rest of your body kind of looks funny. And then you're not training your body to, your movements to the size of your body and how big it's getting, so you start losing a lot of agility and mobility in the way that you move to be free, and so things like that. And so year 11 to me is too young, and I would train with the rubber bands, the elastic bands. I would train with a lot of that stuff. I would train a lot with like skipping ropes, things like that. I'll do a lot of explosive training. There's a lot of guys online that you can find that do explosive speed training. I would do that kind of stuff because most of their movements are all quick, fast movements that tend to rip your body up and to build muscle in those places that that you start to build when you're disciplined in your movement, especially when it comes to making sure that your lift off is all in one movement and it's all done at one pace and all one, all of that stuff is done at one time. And so I would train a lot of explosive stuff as a year 11. and I wouldn't start lifting in the weights until year 12, and even then, I would go to, I mean, if you got the money, I would go to a personal trainer and just make one for me. Or I would go to a cousin who's studying to be a personal trainer, or a friend's cousin who's studying to be a personal trainer, and say, what do I need to do? What would you recommend? And that's just because, if you don't have the money, find someone that's studying it. Find a mate that's studying it. Find someone that someone else that is studying it, and then just try and get a free consultation kind of thing and just ask for their expertise. They might want to go, oh cool, I get to practice what I'm learning and sort of put it into action. And they might just want to do it for free, just to, for themselves. But I wouldn't do all that kind of stuff till year 12. I would focus on your speed and explosiveness training. I would get technique right. There would be another one at year 11. I would get technique right, because once your body catches up to you and you've worked on all your technique, everything's going to be fine. Like, you'll be sweet, man. Like, year 11 still too young to go, oh, how big am I going to get? It's like, well, hey, pass the ball properly first. Set the scrum right, man. Like, let's get your feet right. It's like, bro, drop your hips, man. Like, you're always too high. Like, things like that is just like, let's get work. So, let's work at getting technique right in everything that you do before all that other stuff. And then once you can get into year 12 and year 13, you can start lifting weights. That's what I think personally, anyway. How it is that, or like a good age to do it. And I'm not saying go in there and try and lift 100 kg straight away. I'm just saying go in there and start introducing yourself to lifting weights. Take someone with you that knows how to lift weights. Don't be scared to ask people that are around you as well to go, hey, how do I lift these weights? What's the technique? What's the thing? There's heaps of stuff online. Like, it's funny. I was talking to my dad about this, right? And just like the thing was, it's like, don't lift weights when you're young because it's going to stunt your growth and blah, 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 whatever. And when we were young, obviously we didn't have YouTube. All we knew and all we were educated with and by is by the people that were around you. So the guy that says, oh, yeah, lift it like this, because you look at him and you go, oh, you're pretty muscly. He's like, show me how to do it. He goes, oh, bro, you just how you lift it. And you just believe what they say. You got no other frame of reference. Well, he looks muscly. I want to be muscly like him. It's like, oh, how about you show me how to do it? Sometimes it's just rubbish. Sometimes it's like, oh, they don't even know how to do it. Especially Samoan uncles. I don't know what the hell's wrong with Samoan uncles. It's kind of the same thing. No, come do it. I know how to do it. I'm the best at doing it. It's like, oh, shit, bro, I already checked you out on YouTube, bro. It's like, you're wrong. Back in the days, we couldn't do that. We couldn't fact check our own parents and go, hey, that's not even true, man. It's like, hey, you can't say that. That's not even true. It's like, and but now we've got so much more resources. Like, if you want to learn how to lift weights, you can go onto Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and listen to guys and go and listen to how to lift weights, to learn what the right technique is to doing squats and to doing dips and to doing bench press and to doing arm curls, like all these kind of things. Like, you can go in there and learn that kind of stuff and then apply it. You don't have to just ask, your uncle that thinks he knows everything. It's like, no, yeah, just be a bit more diligent in what you're doing and searching out answers for yourself. And think about it that way. I've got some games that I'm looking forward to. And hopefully a lot more rugby. I'm so gutted that there's no more St. Paul's camp anymore. And if I had the funding, I would do my own camp, preseason camp, for teams to come from all over the country, to be with other teams and other first 15s, to learn off, to grow off, to challenge, to experience, to have all these moments that you would as first 15 players and all have them at the same camp. And that St. Paul's camp is exactly what happened And I'm gutted that it just hasn't carried on. But yeah, I'm trying to get around to more games, see more teams. I'm so happy that Napier boys get to go to the Sanex, Japanese Sanex tournament over there. Even how well Nelson College did over there at the Sevens, over in England. Yeah, those kind of things. My write-up for Scots and King's College, which was amazing. Such a good game to go and see. So cool to see two schools like that battle it out and keep that traditional going. I like that King's College is going down to the South Island too to play Christchurch and Otago. And like I said, like I always like that teams want to travel, and I wish more teams would travel. I understand the funding and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. The write-up is coming up soon. I just wanted to make sure that I got rosters in and making sure I knew who was who, as well as what year they're in. Again, if you're year 11, send through names from year 11. Send through guys that you feel like I should go and have a watch or I should look out for, all those kind of things. Yeah. But that is the Monday morning meeting. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you guys around. Come and have a chat if you see me at games. Come talk. I know I always look angry, but that's just how I look. I just got angry face. I'm not actually angry at all. Most of the time I'm just deep in thought about what's going on, all that kind of stuff, and taking photos. But come and have a chat. Come over, talk. Shout out to those boys at King's College that I was talking to on the sideline. And it's like always enjoyable, especially that kid from Te Awamutu that didn't want to stay at Te Awamutu College, so he went up to King's College, which I thought was pretty funny, especially when I asked him, hey, where are you from? And he goes, Te Awamutu. I go, oh, I'm from Hamilton too, I'm from Templeview. He goes, oh, and he kind of like looked around, I was thinking, oh, you don't want to stay at Te Awamutu College? Which was pretty funny, because if you know Te Awamutu College, it's not King's College. They got some good players in Te Awamutu College too, but yeah, if you have the opportunity to move, just move. But yeah, come and talk to me on the sidelines, have a chat, have a talk, you know, come school me on some stuff, give me some ideas, give me some new thoughts, things to think about, you know, try and change my mind about stuff, because I'm always open to hear people's opinions and that. But everybody have a blessed day. Later, ball.